Welcome back, viewers. It's July and we've got another action-packed show for you. Who do we have, Nigel?
Well, this month we've got an absolutely astonishing young entrepreneur called Ed Beckel and Joanna Webb talking about VR and AR, and finally Hira Ali speaking about the empowerment of women.
It's a nice rich mix there. Enjoy the show, everyone. So I'm thrilled to have Hira Ali in the studio today. She will essentially be deconstructing this book. The book is around her way to the top. The glass ceiling is thicker than it looks. So really, really excited to have you here. Welcome to Learning Now TV studio.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I'm so glad to be here.
So tell us about the book. I mean, obviously the glass ceiling is something that's been talked about for years and years and years. So give us a little bit of insight.
Perfect. So the book is about the internal and external challenges holding women back globally. And my background is that I was working in Asia first, and then I moved to Middle East. And 3 years back, I moved to London. And while I was working in these different cities, I was noticing a specific set of challenges holding women back. And initially, when I was working in Asia, I used to think that it is background specific. But turns out that it was more gender specific. Mm-hmm. So when I moved to London and I said, okay, I've moved to this really progressive city and you have lots of women breaking the glass ceilings. And I realized, lo and behold, women in London are actually also facing the same challenges. So that's when I decided to conduct a survey, and I surveyed 300 women across the globe. And I asked them this question: what are the top challenges holding you back? So there were about 7 internal challenges identified and 3 external challenges. Oh. And what was very fascinating even for me was that literally across the globe, I interviewed women from Africa and US and Asia and Middle East and Europe and UK. Challenges across the globe were universal.
The same.
The same. So in some countries, there were specific challenges which were more profound, but in most of the other regions, it was like the challenges were the same.
And give us a little bit of an insight. What was sort of the top? Okay.
The number one challenge, the number one internal challenge for women across the globe was fear of missing out. And this is really funny because there were different types of FOMOs for women. So there was one FOMO which was specific to working moms, and they feared missing out on the duties of being a perfect mom and a working professional and, balancing that role. And then there were non-moms too, who were actually just kind of, feared missing out on the duties of being a perfect friend or a carer, because even if you don't have children, ladies still need to go back and maybe look after elderly parents or pets or friends or whoever it is. So the guilt was there, and they felt that they were not justifying the role. And then there were women who had nobody to take care of, but yet they also experienced FOMO, and that was FOMO in work, because they really wanted to be perfect in what they were doing, so they feared missing out on details. Wow. And I'm a typical example, because when I was writing this book, I had 100 pages of research, and I just didn't want to miss out any detail whatsoever. So this was the number one challenge, FOMO.
It's astonishing that FOMO would be, I kind of get it, the way that you've deconstructed it, but I thought, there'd be some harder, grittier things there. So what was number 2?
Absolutely. So the number 2 was imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And that was, I think, a very common one. And women across the globe felt underconfident. Am I good enough? Things like that. So that was the second most important challenge. And then the third one was time poverty. And then we had perfectionism, inability to self-promote. And this is all linked. Because women suffer from imposter syndrome and fear of missing out, they tend to be perfectionists, and because they're perfectionists, it's exhausting, so they suffer from stress and time poverty, and they are scared to be vulnerable at work. So these were all internal related challenges.
It's really interesting because as you was talking, I was going, imposter syndrome. But also it made me realize that a lot of them are interconnected. So they're not individual characteristics and they're all sort of layered.
Yes.
So does your book go on to talk about any ways in which we can mitigate some of those?
Absolutely. So in each of these challenges, I offer strategies to address these challenges. And then, of course, we do have to realize that we just don't have internal challenges to cater to. We also have external challenges. So the external challenges that were identified were misogynist work environment, male-dominated industries where it was difficult for women to break the ceiling. Then there was sexual harassment and workplace bullying, putting women down. And then there was, of course, lack of infrastructure. So these were the three external challenges, and it would have been very unfair if I had only pointed out to the internal challenges holding women back, because, there's a group of women who say that women don't need to be fixed and women are already confident and it's the external challenges. And then there's a group of women who say, yes, there are external challenges, but we first need to master the internal challenges in order to, be confident enough to address the external ones. So this was it, and the response has been great, because a lot of women across the globe have reached out to me and they said that we do relate to all these challenges. And I think what was interesting was the international perspective, where women found out that they were not alone. And for me, this was a very empowering feeling on its own, because when I started working in London and I was very new, and I realized, oh my God, you know what? The challenges which I faced back at home are the challenges which women are facing universally. So an important hashtag of my projects, whatever I'm doing, is in this together.
Hashtag in this together.
Yes, absolutely. So I have launched an online women leadership program called Career Excel with my partner in US, Jennifer Willey, and the objective of that is also to connect women globally. And another company which I've launched, International Women Empowerment Events, the objective of that is to link the Eastern and the Western women together. So yes, primarily it's all about, being in this together.
Fantastic. I'm really grateful that you did that research. It's very interesting to know that globally, unfortunately, the struggles exist, and they're the same. If anyone wants to get in contact with you, are you across social media sites?
Absolutely. So I'm very active on social media. So I'm on LinkedIn as Hira Ali, then on Instagram at Advancing You, Twitter at Advancing You. Then I have my website, which is www.advancingyourpotential.com. And I have two other websites, which is www.careerexcel.us and www.iwevents.com. And this book, Her Way to the Top, is available on Amazon and WH Smith, all leading bookstores in UK and US.
Great stuff. You're clearly quite prolific across social media. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing. I'm going to buy the book the minute that this show finishes.
Perfect.
And thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Don, your research in 2015 brought the issue of gender inequality in the learning sector to our attention. What did you discover initially?
The key discovery, and this was looking across several thousand members of the learning and development community, in terms of authority, there was a clear distinction across genders. Support roles roughly were populated 2-to-1 by women over men, but in senior roles, there are roughly 2 men for every woman.
Just because there's lots of women in the industry doesn't mean that this isn't a problem. We don't have a problem attracting women into learning and development. My message at the Women in Learning Conference has been that this problem is real. And it isn't just a sense of this stuff. There's evidence out there that shows this.
It seemed to me that there was something really real happening here. We've only got 35% of women are in senior L&D and leadership positions. This isn't a male-female discussion. This has to come from everybody. And I think oftentimes it's difficult for those who haven't experienced gender inequality to truly see it for what it is sometimes. So I think there's that awareness piece and that education piece. We've got about 150 delegates, senior L&D professionals from amazing brands like ASOS, Google, Aviva, Nando's, Facebook, the list goes on. And what we're trying to do today is get all of these men and women together to start sharing their stories and talking about this movement and this cause.
You've got some role models and you've got some inspiration and you've got some mentors and people that you can reach out to, then suddenly this becomes a really powerful movement.
Our CEO, Karen Hubbard, is one of the only women CEOs in the FTSE Top 250. So I've got a great mentor and I'm surrounded by an awful lot of strong women, so that's certainly a big help. But I think it's still an interesting thing, I guess, across card factory retail in general. It's a female-dominated workforce. You walk into any retail environment and the majority of staff are women. But as you start to look at those senior positions, that doesn't always pan out, so we've still got a way to go, I think.
The world is becoming more human-focused and actually becoming more inclusive to everyone. But it's something that we also have to work on a daily basis to make sure that whatever your age, gender, sexuality, that nothing actually impacts the best person getting the best jobs. As a CEO, I believe learning and development is one of the biggest focuses of your role and why it reports directly into me, because the only way we will achieve our goals and dreams is by actually investing in our team to really help us deliver on them.
We're so excited to, with Nicola, bring this initiative of really creating a true learning culture in Desian and really spearheading a real co-construction of knowledge and of learning together.
What I wanted to really share with the delegates at the conference today was, I guess, some of my own story in terms of how I got from where I am, where I started in my career as a store manager in retail around about 9 years ago to taking on a role as Executive Director of Culture and Transformation. So I really just wanted to stress how important learning and development is. Because yes, we do courses on customer service and all those kind of things, but it's the sessions we do, I think, on self-belief, on career planning, on getting rid of people's inhibitors and helping them to set goals and reach those goals that make a real difference to people.
Leading with heart and kind of surrendering to the power of your emotions in a culture that is all about how humans connect and how humans learn is your strength. It doesn't hold you back. So in fact, for me, men can have that too, but anyone who has that nurturing instinct or is trying to understand what human connection really is all about, for me, those should be leaders in learning. Whether they're male, whether they're female, anyone who truly connects to our human emotion really creates meaningful learning cultures and true change.
Internal mobility is a massive part of how we develop rounded leaders, and also a massive part about how we hold on to people. We're an incredibly diverse organisation in lots of different countries doing lots of different things. But actually, my day-to-day experience is most affected by the leaders that I work for. And I've been really fortunate working for leaders who I can talk to about me, not just work. And I think that's half the battle, is that if you're able to be completely truthful about what's going on for you, then you can work out how can what's going on for me meld with what we need to do as an organisation.
Our profession is evolving. There's a lot of change swirling around, and if we can kind of pull all these disparate threads together, I think it could be really exciting. And it's not just about women, it's about diversity across the piece. So this notion of intersectionality, so age, ethnicity, disability, all of these things, I really want to factor all of that into the debate.
I really hope that the movement continues to gain momentum. What we're really hoping for today is that people are able to take something away and take back to their own organizations in terms of how do we start mobilizing change.
In the L&D world, we all know our biggest challenge is knowledge fade and demonstrating ROI from our training interventions. At Elephants Don't Forget, we use artificial intelligence to guarantee that what you train your employees, they learn and retain. If you are looking to transform the impact your training content has in your business, improve the ROI, and perhaps help employees learn and retain even the dull regulatory material, drop me a line at nelly@elephantsdon'tforget.com.
I'm really honoured and I'm slightly in awe of my next guest. Not someone you'll find typically in the learning and development space, but I think someone who you'll hear about in the years to come. So I'm very pleased today to introduce Ed Beckel. Ed, welcome to Learning Now Television.
Thanks for having me, Nigel.
Ed, let's just talk about your history. Ed, and this will surprise people, you left school at 16.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you left school at 16 and taught yourself to code?
Really design.
Design
was my main thing.
Yeah.
Just learning how to build out screens and put things together.
Okay. And what did you do with that knowledge?
I set up my first app, and it was a tutoring app that I set up at school with sort of peer tutoring, and in terms of how do you connect people up inside of ecosystems that might want to share.
Yeah.
So it started off as a way to, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was sort of 14, 13, and I missed a lot of school. And the thing was I was always trying to find tutors nearby, but I'd always find it difficult to find them. And when I did, they'd be probably pretty expensive, kind of older professors who'd be sort of £50 an hour plus. And so I thought, actually, I don't need that. I could use a sort of third year at university student rather than someone else who was charging 10 an hour. And so I thought, why don't I build a system that actually connects you with those sort of people nearby? And that was actually my segue into this sort of enterprise HR space, and sort of applying the same methodology of kind of connecting peers inside of ecosystems that should connect.
What happened to that app?
It did okay.
You sold it?
Technically, we licensed it to a bigger company abroad.
And it's still going?
Yeah, so it was a great kind of first success, I suppose.
How many users has it got?
Right now, a lot. I can't really say because it's not my...
Well, give me a rough idea. More than 100,000?
No, but in the region.
In the region of 100,000. So your first app that you started for yourself and for your own benefit, before you left school at the age of 16, is now in existence as a commercial product with round about 100,000 users.
I can't really say it's that many, but it's definitely done really well.
Okay. So a lot of people would have retired at that point and thought, I've finally made it. But you were only 16. What did you do next?
So I sort of poked around, sort of tried starting a few different sort of websites online before I set up a website that basically a bot site. So you could go to the site, buy 100,000 Instagram followers or 1 million YouTube views. It was sort of social media manipulation, which was a lot of fun too. So I ended up, getting to meet all these sort of cool people who were, starting on TV shows that wanted to build up credibility, and they'd come to the site and buy from there. And that was brilliant and amazing. And then I ended up building a kind of sales enablement platform. So a system
related to that.
No,
totally
just
separate.
all,
So what happened to the YouTube, the maximising YouTube and Twitter follower site? Did that still exist?
Yeah. Well, I'm not.
Did you sell it, or are you still managing it?
It's a sort of a grey area in terms of being, legal. I don't know if I can really.
Okay, but it exists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I do it on referral, so I do it for people that are about to go on to a big TV show or whatever it is.
So it's like a kind of consultancy service more than anything.
Yeah, kind of a referred by X, and I'd...
we'll just silently let that go. So you then got completely legal and went into a sales enablement platform.
Yeah, so I built a system where, if you've got a company with 1,000 sales reps or hundreds of sales reps, I built a system so senior execs at the company can pull different kind of catalogs and material into different channels on our web app online, and it would sync up to those different sales reps' devices, and the sales reps could pull different products from different sort of materials to make their own customizable PDF that they'd then send on to specific prospects. But you can then track how long the prospect spent engaging with each item in the kind of sent PDF. But so on a macro for the business with all these sales reps, it's quite cool because they can see and visualize where, all their 1,000 sales reps have been sending things onto, and where perhaps the recipients have been sending things onto also, but more importantly, what they're engaging with.
Yeah, so trackable, personalized data, allowing an organization to see what sales reps notoriously difficult to keep track of, because they're all out there, what they're doing. Okay, so what happened to that?
So it's been adopted by sort of multi-billion-dollar wholesaler, and it's their main channel for selling now.
Okay,
and it's sort of getting bigger and bigger, and we're enabling a lot of sales.
Great.
So millions and millions.
Okay,
of sales.
So we're now on your third startup. How old are you by this time?
So sadly, I'm 20.
Yeah.
So no longer a teenager.
Oh my goodness. Must be awful.
Genuinely.
Must be awful.
It's quite annoying actually, because my biggest in was
I'm only a teenager.
Yeah, I'd cold email and people would want to meet me because it's a novelty to meet someone so young and who's doing so much, and they take the meetings, and you go there and you actually impress them, and then they actually help you. But that, that's always been huge for me. So when I was starting at school and wanted to break into the space, it was cold emailing a lot of people and really just Googling and trying to get through the door and then hoping they'll help me. So kind of mentoring in a way.
Active mentoring.
Yeah, exactly.
Being the seeker.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah, that's really been my the whole
your
vision.
Sales pitch in a way.
Yeah, that's what Grasp's turned into. This startup that I'm working on now, it combines all these things.
So so that sales enablement platform, someone else is dealing with that.
Yeah.
Did you sell it, license it?
So it's being licensed a lot.
Okay.
And it's I manage the tech.
Right. So you're still involved in that.
I am just.
Okay. Right.
So it's sort of on the just in the background.
Next one is Grasp, and that's how we met. Grasp is a mentoring and social engagement platform to work inside organizations within the intranet or whatever. Yeah. And the idea is that it allows people to match partner around an idea, a program, a mentoring, a problem, or whatever it might be. But the great thing about it, the thing that I admire most, is that it's got this fabulous dashboard that allows you to see at a glance what's actually going on in your organization. And that's gold dust, I think.
It's amazing. I mean, it's just really... It's cool being able to visualize everything in huge companies.
It is.
Who's connecting with who, why are they meeting, what are they learning, and just having that done in the background, full stop, in these kind of companies.
And who was your first big customer?
Well, so Unilever would be
Unilever.
So they're the biggest.
Other people start small. They find that maybe they can sell it to a 50-person company and get it piloted. You sold to Unilever.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. It's just we're starting out. We're doing our pilot now, and we're getting it all set up and sorted out. But that all started from being at this this classical music concert and spotting their CEO in the audience. And I sort of went up to him afterwards and started telling him what
So you saw the CEO of Unilever at a classical concert and you went up to him?
Yeah, you've got to take all the shots you can get.
You have got to take all the shots. But that's a very brave thing to do. But he responded. He responded.
But I think everyone admires the ethos behind what we're trying to do, and that's it's really a cultural shifter. Trying to get more people to connect, to sharing and engage with one another in these sort of businesses.
Yes.
I always look at it as a tacit knowledge sharing platform.
It's exactly what it is. It is. And both formally in a kind of mentoring senior relationship, but also just bringing people together inside organizations who find it very difficult to come together to share tacit knowledge. And to me, that is becoming increasingly critical for organizational success. There's so much knowledge that is locked away in corners and pockets in organizations, and to have a platform that can do that in a really straightforward way, that can embed itself in other software so that it can be part of a talent HR setup, or it can be standalone.
I mean, that's something a lot of people ignore, is how many entry points there are to really get something like this working in businesses, whether it's in your intranet or integrating with e-learning solutions, or even just inside your email. I mean, for us, I tend to look at the organization as this triangle, and we'll go in and we'll try and do events when we first launch anywhere, and really just sort of pre-sign on senior leaders of the organization, and they're generally the people in the top half of that triangle. And it's and they're the ones, everyone's got something to share and something to learn, and that's what it's all about, informally. But it's the bottom half of the triangle that will be proactive enough to go on to Grasp and actually send meetup requests or mentoring requests, whether it's short or long term or reverse, whatever it might be. And actually the top half, they want to share, and it's as valuable for them as everyone else. But they generally won't interact with another system. There's just too many things for people to engage with. And so the fact that it's inside your emails, it means, you don't need to
really learn anything new. Work it out.
You don't need to use Grasp.
It's just there.
Exactly.
It's just there.
It's very frictionless. The whole idea is, how do we make it non-awkward for people to just connect? And a way we've done that is by consistent, smart recommendations of people you should be connecting with internally based on what we know about your skill gaps and your goals in terms of career development. It's been huge.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's scalable?
Yeah, exactly. It's group wide. That's a big thing. Onboarding is very quick, kind of 4 minutes. Just getting a sort of baseline understanding for who you are, what you're doing, what you might want to learn more about, and that's it's really fun.
I think it's fantastic. And it's called Grasp.
Yeah.
And
Grasp.
I think it sums up your career. You're someone who's grasped every opportunity that's ever come up against. You've come up against. And I think we're going to hear a lot more about Grasp. We're going to hear a lot more about Ed Beckel. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Nigel.
So thank you so much for your time. And good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck going forward. Thank you.
Whoever you are, wherever you're from, you can network with professionals and experts on the award-winning DPG community.
You can choose to look at articles, videos, podcasts. You can look at comments that people have made. I find it my first stop when I'm thinking about L&D. If I have a question or I want to learn more, that's the first place I go.
Just head online and search for DPG community and sign up free today.
Mr. Controversial is back, and this time he's focusing on evidence-based strategy. Robin is doing a project with the CIPD focusing on giving a bit of acknowledgement to the unseen researchers who often come up with ideas that change the whole of learning and development and often get no acknowledgement for that pioneering research.
Hello. Over the next 2 pieces that I'm going to do for Learning Now TV, I want to talk to you about the importance of research into various areas of our practice, and especially the need to give appropriate citations when we base the work that we do on the research that other people have carried out before us. So I learned this week that Johnny Gifford and the team that he's part of at CIPD are launching a new initiative called Critically Appraised Topics, or CATS, which is a handy acronym. See what they did there? And I was really pleased because evidence matters. The initiative asks people in our industry, people like you, to think about some of the work they're doing and then submit questions which you'd like the team to provide more information around, different ideas, research projects, papers that perhaps you don't have access to but they do, so that they can gather together more evidence to support what it is that we do. And I urge you to get involved, because we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and maybe sometimes the people in our industry either prefer for those giants not to be recognised or even to pretend that those giants aren't there at all. Now, take a tweet I noticed the other day. So it came from someone who was proudly announcing their research into peripheral involvement. So it showed that there was peripheral engagement in social media networks and in social learning networks, and that was of value to those people who were on the edges. So the so-called social media lurkers still gain significant benefit, even if they're not posting their own experiences or sharing what they've learned or pointing people towards things that they've learned or read or discovered via the internet. So it was held by some of those people who commented on that tweet as being a breakthrough, that this was exactly the news that they'd been waiting for. And those involved, those researchers, happily retweeted, liked the praise that they garnered from their fan base. And this is a group that I like to call the social lights. This breakthrough seemed somewhat familiar to me, because in 1991, Jean Larvé and Etienne Wenger published Situated Learning, Legitimate Peripheral Participation. Now, this book is wholly focused on the learning of those involved in so-called peripheral participation. So whether involved in discussions or activities, or they're observing what's going on, they still learn things and how they can move towards the centre of this particular network which they are on the edges of. Now, given that Wenger was a computer scientist, or is a computer scientist, I'm sure he meant it in relation to both physical networks, teams, groups of people who work together, and online networks and discussions, even though this work predated the World Wide Web. So you may say, well, how can somebody who's doing this work somewhere be expected to know of all these obscure texts buried deep in academia? Well, maybe they never even heard of it. Well, that might be true. But given that this is the book which is widely considered to be the first one to talk about and name communities of practice, I kind of doubt that they'd never heard of it. I also doubt that they didn't quote it just because it's old, because surely choosing not to reference a book because it's venerable wouldn't be something which you considered, was it? Or maybe there's nothing sexy about referencing tomes that predate the internet, or maybe tomes which predate most of your fan base are not going to cut the mustard. Now, maybe it's because the work was undertaken by academics, people with long words, unattractive, difficult to read papers, very often buried in expensive journals. To be referred to as an academic, it no longer confers respect. It's no longer an acknowledgement of people with a certain level of intellectual rigour. If anything, it's a term of abuse. It denotes people who are out of touch or impractical, people with their head in the clouds. It's reserved for occupants of the tallest of ivory towers, who breathe a kind of rarefied air which is somewhat different from those of us with our feet firmly on the ground. Now, my belief is somewhat different to that. I say, thank God someone's thinking about the hard stuff. Thank God someone is working out what works based on real wisdom rather than the received wisdom which is so popular. Thank God somebody's writing things down in a way which goes beyond the soundbite trotted out on social media to build a successful profile. So let's be charitable. Let's say that using unaccredited research by others is simply about recycling or reuse and upcycling maybe. Maybe we're all supposed to do a bit of that now. Maybe we're just making the planet, along with our careers, slightly more sustainable. This is not new. One of my first ever appearances on Learning Now TV, I drew attention to Albert Bandura. Now, Albert Bandura is the most often cited living psychologist, and he coined the term social learning in 1963. Yeah, I know. 1963, ages ago. He doesn't get much of a mention by those who talk about social learning, the socialites that I referred to earlier. I don't think it has to be this way, but I don't think it's just about how we do what we do, enable people to learn and develop their performance and their capability. Sometimes it's about what we ask people to learn as well, and that's the topic that I'll return to next time. See you then.
Martin Cousins is back this month, and he joins me to talk about yet another interesting research report published in the last few weeks. And the one we're going to concentrate on this month is the recent CIPD report on health and well-being at work. So what's interesting about it, Martin? Why did you pick it?
Right, so those who don't know, the CIPD is the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development.
It is indeed.
It represents 130,000 plus HR and L&D professionals in the UK. They do this annual report on health and well-being, and it's been going on for 19 years. I think this is the 19th year. So it's an interesting report because you can identify trends over time.
Yes.
So health and well-being at work. The number one cause of stress at work is workload and volume of work. The number two is management style. Number three, relationships at work. Now, I think that's quite interesting because if we talk about things like employee experience and learning cultures, and we then look at those three causes of stress at work, you would argue that those three are important factors in helping with developing learning cultures. But at the same time, they appear to be the cause of stress.
And all related as well.
Yeah.
That workload has to be partly responsibility of the manager, and therefore workload puts pressure on colleagues, tension, manager tension, work tension, stress at work equals.
So I'm quite a big fan of looking at some research that informs what is going on from a L&D and HR perspective. And I think, you can't hide from health and well-being.
It's important, and it's also a legal duty as well.
Of course. But the impact on learning, for example, is big. You can't, if you're saying that leaders and managers are really important in role modelling behaviours, then if they're role modelling behaviours that cause stress, then you're not going to get a very positive impact on your desired outcome, which is better learning, if you like. So the role of leaders in this research, a third agree that senior leaders encourage a focus on mental well-being through their actions and behaviour. One third. So 2/3 don't. And there's an increased proportion attribute management style as a cause of stress. It's 43% this year compared with 32% on the previous year. So it's getting worse. So, and management is a number 2 cause of stress at work, according to this research. So that's going the wrong way. So leaders and managers mostly aren't role modelling the behaviours that you'd expect to see to help for better health and well-being at work.
Yes.
Interestingly, there's an evaluation challenge around all of this, which maybe doesn't come as a surprise to anyone in L&D. But 2/3 of respondents agree the impact of evaluation impact is an important step in the development of their wellbeing programs, but only a third report that their organisation takes a continuous improvement or feedback loop approach to improve them.
So they're just either doing nothing or doing a one-off evaluation and moving on. They're not keeping a watchful eye on progress of the organisation.
So I think that feedback loop bit of that is really interesting because, this isn't a one-off injection of this is what well-being looks like.
That's a very old model of L&D, isn't it? Yes.
So, but it's not translating into this area
at all.
There's continuous improvement, which is, I think continuous improvement is generally is really important and interesting area for L&D. And also, less than a quarter critically assess the quality of well-being outcomes for those that participate in the activities. So we're back to a kind of L&D evaluation type problem there, which is, whatever's being done is not being evaluated anyway. So I think that needs to just improve. So, and that is an L&D thing. I know it's health and well-being, which people might not see as an L&D thing, but the actual running of and evaluating programs related to that absolutely is.
Yes.
So that could be a lot better.
What is their prognostication? Do they make recommendations or do they just describe the state of affairs?
Yeah, they do. It's a lengthy report. And, you won't be surprised to hear that you need to take a very kind of holistic approach to this because you've got lots of things at play here. Workloads and volume of work, management style.
So a couple of courses on health and well-being at work aren't going to cut the mustard, are they?
Not really. And then this gets probably filed in the too complex to do, which potentially maybe that file is getting bigger and bigger for L&D right now. So it's a challenge. Also, I think it's quite interesting that they highlighted the fact that presenteeism and leavism are both a problem in health and wellbeing.
Presenteeism. What is leavism?
I think leavism is when you actually you take your leave, but you're still working, or you're checking in.
Right.
So you're never really leaving. Your work behind.
And that is a problem because of stress and.
Oh, because the number one cause of stress at work is workload and volume of work. It's going round in circles here. And I think viewers will get it. It's like, so that has to stop. Something has to go into that cycle, which just immediately stops it.
But what you seem to be saying is that all of this is structural. It's not just about adjusting on the margins. It's structural. You've got to change the way work is organised, and you've got to change managers and the workforce's attitude towards work in order to reassert some kind of balance, which seems to have got lost if people are not even taking leave because they're scared of getting too far behind on workload.
I think it's a conversation to be had. I agree. This is one of those reports where you could hold that up as a mirror to your own organisation and say, what do we look like?
Yes.
Is there anything in here that we are doing that we shouldn't be doing? And can we have a conversation? You know, no one L&D professional is going to change this stuff in their organisation, quite clearly. But to be able to start having the conversation is where you can start to engage people with the issues.
Yes.
You know, everyone knows that. But I think it's useful to just hold it up as a mirror.
Yes.
So you can start the conversation. Do we look like that? What data do we have on this? What are our programs doing here? Why aren't they working? You know, those kind of things.
That's a good model that you're talking, and that model is that you don't just rush in with solutions. You don't go and buy a packaged health and well-being program off the shelf from someone else. You find out what the real issues are and you confront those real issues, and they are almost certainly not to do with superficial things, but to do with quite profound holistic areas where everything touches on everything else, and it's about the culture in the workplace and so on. And you start from that point. You start from understanding what the quantum is, the size of the problem, and then you begin to put big programs in to try and overcome that and have big conversations which don't stop, and you don't evaluate them once. You keep a watchful eye and try and improve day to day, month by month, year by year.
Yeah.
And you'll end up with productivity gains, I would imagine. If you've got happy, healthy workforce, they're going to be far more productive than miserable, oppressed and stressed workforce who can't even go on holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
So another report to download and read.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nigel.
Studies have shown that learning programs are now crucial weapons in the fight to attract and retain talent. Working closely with modern learning organisations across the globe, we have developed Learning Programs of Excellence, a prestigious award recognising exceptional, state-of-the-art learning programs. If you're a learning department or function, LPE will help you attract new talent. You'll boost your appeal as an employer by showcasing the calibre of your learning programs and development opportunities within your organisation. If you're a provider of learning, LPE gives you an absolute guarantee that your learning programs are capable of creating a lasting positive effect on performance and business outcomes. Get in touch with the Learning and Performance Institute now and begin your Learning Programme of Excellence journey.
Learning News is at Tower Bridge in London with Headspring, who has gathered together people from HR, journalism, learning and technology. They're exploring AI and data at work and how our leadership development might need to adapt.
So we're seeing a clear knowledge gap, a big difference between how the workforce and how senior leaders perceive the dawn of AI and what this actually means. There's a large fear that AI is going to basically replace humans in job, but senior leadership, and specifically CEOs, have a very high trust in human decision making and actually don't see it in the same way. The research also shows the importance of communication, preparing the organization in making a massive change in order to have a successful rollout of AI.
Working out what the future will look like with AI and machine learning, deep learning, is really, really difficult. It's clear that we're in an era where things are changing really fast. Lots of sectors are being disrupted, from retail to financial services, because of changing technology. We've seen it in the sector that I work in media.
AI is one of those things that people keep talking about, the coming of AI. It's an event that's going to happen to all of us, but actually it's sort of been silently infiltrating our businesses for a really long time.
There's a big change in organisations in general, so the traditional organisational structure is dead effectively, and in order for us to be able to react to the market faster, predictive analytics and AI are really, really key.
How can we make sure that we don't just create more cultural problems with people feeling that they don't belong or that they feel separate from what's happening with technology?
think it comes down to this trust gap that people have with artificial intelligence, and most of that comes from the unknown. So people not understanding AI or not understanding how it will actually influence their roles or their jobs over the long term. So I think for most businesses, if they want to tackle this and they want to make sure that they don't actually create more cultural problems, it all comes down to transparency within the organisation, how it's going to affect people, and the communications piece as well.
And rather than saying let's just introduce AI into the workplace, let's look at the business problem first and then see how new technologies such as AI can help, and then introducing baby steps so it doesn't become so overwhelming and daunting.
What skills are business leaders focused on in 2019, and how might leadership development need to shift its focus?
So I think in today's world, leaders and leadership development has been focused on a certain set of skills, and I think at the end of the day, with the rollout of AI and as times are changing, there will be a shift more and a need more for soft skills and human abilities. Learning how to learn is key in order to be relevant. Very closely linked to that is also developing a growth mindset. Willingness to keep moving forward, to take on challenges with the time. So these are a couple, but I think emotional intelligence. Leaders will need to be able to understand how to motivate, as always, how to motivate their teams, their organizations.
So you need a mixture of technology people, people who are good with learning, people who are good with process, people who are able to present, people who are more analytical, to really bring the best of breed to our clients.
The challenges that we have to sort of overcome are the stigma associated with artificial intelligence and the fact that the robots are coming and all of those sorts of things, and embrace the ways in which it can actually make work easier and amplify our efforts in everyday life.
In the past, there's always been maybe over-indexing on some of the hard skills, and you look to leaders to have depth and analytical skills and so forth. But with AI, that will change. You're not going to be able to compete with the algorithms and machine learning. So in this sense, it will be more important than before to actually be able to properly engage and drive and motivate your workforce.
What are going to be the implications for the HR sector and the learning sector, learning and development sector with AI, do you think, John Cole?
So a lot is how you're going to introduce automation into your target operating model. So today it's people doing a lot of the work, and I think the organisations that are going to be successful are the ones that can introduce that automation, robotic process automation, and those analytic skills. I also think it's about bringing in digital talent and how you introduce new talent with old talent and reskilling people, and I think that's going to be very, very important. There's a lot of issues around how do I mix skill my team, how do I reskill the talent I have today so that I'm relevant for the future tomorrow, how do I reduce my costs in HR such as through automation, and how do I use things like predictive analytics to get the right candidates coming in and then making sure that they stick.
This is one of the most exciting questions. So we're seeing a shift in the HR and learning and development space where the kind of ye olde worldy HR that was driven by compliance and administration, that's sort of being left behind. Not in a bad way, but I think that's what's being taken over by AI. The exciting part for that means that HR now occupies a much more strategic space in the business landscape, and it means that we have a much better seat at the table in order to be able to influence the way that businesses are run. So for me, I think it presents a fantastic opportunity for people in this space.
Imagine a workplace where people are energised and motivated by being in control of the work they do. Imagine they have the freedom, within guidelines, to work at their best. Imagine they have managers who coach and support them rather than tell them what to do. Isn't that the sort of place you'd like to work? Can you imagine how much more productive it would be? You can discover how to do that in my book, The Happy Manifesto. Download it from here, or chat to me at any time about how to create a place like that.
I'm delighted to have lured into the studio Joanna Webb. Joanna is the founder of 3Rs Immersive, and at least 2 of those R's stand for virtual reality and augmented reality, and that will be what we're going to talk about this morning. So, Joanna, first of all, what is the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality? It confuses a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, it's a common question that people ask me. So virtual reality is where you're fully enclosed in an artificially created world.
Wearing a headset, maybe.
That's right. And it can be either a graphically created world, a CGI world, or it can be a video-based or photographically based world, which is normally called 360.
Yes. So, in other words, you twirl all the way around. And
you can see all around yourself, and that's
up
probably
and down and all around.
Yeah, that's probably the form of VR that most people have come across so far. AR is augmented reality, so that's where you can still see the real world. You're not fully immersed, and you're overlaying information over the real world.
Right, rather like there's a table that you can see in the real world, but on that table there are people fighting or castles popping up, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, or in a training context that you can provide a kind of heads-up display for people.
Yes, so if you're looking at a machine, it will identify the parts or explain how you take it apart, whatever.
And augmented reality can be either in a headset, like the Microsoft HoloLens, or you can use it on a tablet or a phone.
Yes, so you just hold your phone in front of you, basically, your tablet in front of you. So 3 hours immersive. You got in early into this area.
Absolutely,
which is very brave. What do you do? What do you mostly do? Do you put things together? Do you explain how it works? Do you act as a consultant or a builder or a deliverer?
So
how do you do it?
My specialist area is in education and training. I was working as the head of immersive at Pearson, and before I started my company. And my idea is to help companies who want to build something using augmented or virtual reality but don't really know where to start, but also to work with companies who've built products who need assistance in learning design and really need to understand how to build good learning in augmented or virtual reality.
Yes. So tell me what is the main thing you do? Is it to help people understand the basic principles and how to get the best out of it? Or is it kind of more nitty-gritty, helping people script, helping people shoot, that kind of thing?
It's really on the design side, helping people design good experiences, because I believe very, very strongly in the power of these technologies to really transform training and education. And to really make training and education better, to make it more effective, to make it cheaper, to make it easier to distribute.
Yes. What would you describe as some of your biggest successes, where you've made a real difference?
I think I feel every day, I hope that I make a difference to my clients, because really what I want to do is be the learner's voice, to represent them and to help them to learn better. And so every day I feel like I make a difference in terms of just improving the learning design of things or helping my clients to find the right solution for their business need.
Yes. Give me an example of how you make a difference. Is it well, you tell me. What is the contribution you make that mostly makes the difference?
I think that a lot of people look at these technologies and they see, oh, this is a really cool technology. It's quite common for people to come to me and say, oh, I really want to use VR.
Yeah.
And I think what is easier for me to do is step back from all the glamour that surrounds the technology and say, what is your actual business need? What is your actual learner need? What is it you actually need to achieve? And not, what technology would help you to do that, rather than start from a point of, we want to use this cool technology.
And therefore find something for us to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you go back to basic principles of learning.
Yeah, because I'm not so it sounds straightforward, but it's easy to get sucked into this kind of glamour of these technologies and think that's what you need. And very often I say to people, actually, in this case, I don't think you do need VR.
Yes.
You might just do and achieve the same thing at a lower cost using a 2D video. And so it's really looking at what are the actual use cases that make the best use of the affordances of the technology.
And you're unlike other companies which go in with, this is all whizzy-bangy, you should be using it. You're actually saying the opposite. Let's look at the business case and let's decide whether there is an appropriate use or not. And part of your role is to be the naysayer. I don't think you should be doing this. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean,
so you can be trusted, in other words.
Yes, that's my differentiator, I think, is that because I come from a learning background, not from a tech background, I can really step back a little bit and say, honestly, what do you need here? And I haven't got a team of developers behind me. I partner with companies, with trusted companies who work in this area. But I'm not pushing one particular technology over another. I really want to give the client the best technology that fits their needs.
So you haven't got lots of mouths to feed. So you always fight. Miraculously, whatever people ask, you say, oh, we've got a solution and it requires this amount of development.
Yes.
You don't behave like that at all.
And I think because of the time that I spent at Pearson over the other side of the desk, where I had companies coming to me, I've got a really good understanding of the VR/AR landscape and what the technologies are that are out there. And, you know, probably about 6 months ago or to a year ago, there were lots of companies who were promoting things that didn't yet exist, or, you know, vastly overcharging for things. And that's calmed a lot now, but there's still a need for someone who can go out there and really navigate through that landscape.
Yes, I agree with you. I think you're a signposter, essentially. You're helping map out the pathway.
Absolutely.
And doing it in a straightforward, honest way, and not leading people to use the continuing energy down the garden path.
That's right.
You're taking them on a good, solid journey.
That's
okay. So there are lots of organisations out there who are slightly, maybe eyes twinkling about AR and VR. What advice would you give organisations thinking of taking the first steps? Give me 2 or 3 things that they should think about so that they can make the best use of their time, money and agency and not be seduced into wasting a lot of money for something that won't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the one I already said, you know, start from your business case.
Yes.
What is your business case? What are you trying to achieve? And then look at the learner outcomes. What is it you're trying to achieve for the learner? That's the most important thing. After that, really start small. So you don't need to start with an all singing, all dancing app for HoloLens that, you know, you can start. I mean, HoloLens is an amazing technology, but there are loads of other technologies as well. So really think, how do you start small? You might want to start, for example, with a 360 experience or a mobile AR experience. They're the kind of starting entry point technologies for this area. So, you know, think about, where's your business case? How can you start small? How can you test? And there's a great need in the industry now for real feedback as to which technologies and which applications of the technologies work the best. And then the more testing and feedback we can get out into the public domain, the better for everybody.
Yeah. I think there are 3 really good points. First one is work out your business case. Don't just plunge in with the technology. Secondly, start small.
Yeah.
And thirdly, work out how you can test that this is really effective. Excellent points. And Joanna, thank you so much for coming to talk to me. I hope people listen to this and listen to your good sense and good advice. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Sadly, we're out of time, Nigel. So let everyone know what's coming up next.
Well, Barbara, we've got 3 excellent conferences coming up. First one is Learning Live in London in September. Then we've got the World of Learning in Birmingham in October. And towards the end of the year, it's time for Learning 19 in Orlando, Florida.
All sound great. Thank you very much and see you next month.